You know, it's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. You know, when you go to the gym and you work out, you're actually seeking failure. You want to take your muscles to the point where you get to failure, because that's where the adaptation is. That's where growth is. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed, but they extract the lessons from the failure and they use that, the energy, and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. You gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're gonna fail. That's the reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. You're getting to your limit, getting to your limit, getting to your limit. You can't lift that, you can't do that, until you get to the point that all of a sudden your body makes the adjustment and then you can do it. Failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. So fail early, fail often, fail forward.
People say you can't change your career at 30, that's when you're meant to be settling down. You can't change your career at 35, you should have had it figured out by then. Oh my God, you're not married at 38? What the hell are you doing with your life? Who comes up with this stuff? I have no idea. But this stuff plagues so many people that I speak to. So many people open up to me and say, Jay, I just don't know how to change. Is it possible? What do you think this guy was before he became who he is? He used to be a PE teacher, right? Sports teacher at a high school. How about her? She was a telemarketer for 2 weeks. How about her? She applied to be a funeral director. It's incredible. What happens in society is that we're clouded by the noise of family expectations, the noise of our parents, the noise of our brothers and sisters' expectations. I grew up in a family where you could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, right? Those were my 3 options. Anything else would just count me as a failure. I would have failed. So basically I failed, right? I'm standing up here in front of you all as a failure. I lived as a monk for 3 years. I committed career suicide. I turned down 2 amazing corporate job offers when I graduated from business school. I shaved my hair, I wore robes, and lived out of a gym locker for 3 years. And I did that because I thought I was going to do something meaningful, help impact the world. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. But more than becoming a monk, what that trained me to do was drop out with the rules. People told me, if you come back in 3 years, you'll never get a job. They told me, if you become a monk, people are going to think you're weird forever. No girl's ever going to talk to you. People told me, they were like, well, when you come back to real life, like, will you even be able to talk English? Like, people were just really weirded out. I'm just like, okay, I think monks speak English. And there was so much different noise that I was hearing when I made that decision. And the funny thing is, from having not been a monk for 4 years now, I'm in one of the most incredible periods of my life that I could ever have asked for. And so much of that is based on the fact that I decided to do something different. So many of the times our expectations are driving us in a certain scenario. We focus so much on life in what we want to be as opposed to who we want to be. Because we've always been told that life and jobs and careers are like boxes and containers. There's only a finite number of options. There is no formula, there is no pattern. If you know what you're passionate about, if you know what you're good at, and you invest in that. People say follow your passions, I say forget that, invest in your passions. If you're passionate about something, go and become the best at it. Go and do a course on it. Go and learn from the best. Go and find a mentor who's going to make you incredible at that trait. Not only will you be criticized and grow, you'll be able to find new things about yourself that you never knew. Don't trade who you are for who you think the world needs, because the world needs you to be you, and I mean that.
My mom cried, I cried. I was like, how stupid could I be? There was a guy who called me up. He sold me on this idea, maybe you need a website. And I said, well, that's maybe I don't need a website. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. So, and I was naive enough to believe in him. And he said, oh, he would say, oh, we need some programming stuff. Okay, I didn't know anything about, we need more money. Long story short, back and forth, I would sink in more and more money into the ventures, believing they was almost done. I would put money into it. I thought I would be successful overnight. I thought I'm gonna make it. So before you knew it, in about a year's time, from borrowing money from friends and family on my mom's face savings, about 30K, accumulates about $150,000. And then one day, I said, you know what, screw this, I want my money back. Next day, he disappeared. He moved out, nowhere to be found. I was so mad at myself. My mom cried, I cried. I was like, how stupid could I be? But I had no one to blame because I was trying to search for a shortcut. I thought I could rely on this person and I would be successful overnight. I failed at 13 businesses and everything I touch, it just turns into chaos. It cost me so dearly when I don't know what I was doing. It turned me into this fanatic, obsessive student. From then on, I'm obsessed about learning because of that incident. One time I was attending a workshop, sitting in the back of the hotel room, and sitting next to me was a gentleman called Alan Jacks. I love your work. At the end, I asked him if I can work for him, I can learn from him. He's like, okay, fine, what do you want? I said, I just want to learn. And he took me on, he let me work for him. Gave me an opportunity to work on some of the marketing, and I would write a letter. And I would give it to him. He looked at it. He said, it'll crumble, this is he'll throw it away. He said, do it again. Fine. We wrote the whole thing, take it to him second time. He'll look at this, he'll crumble this. I said, it cannot be. He said, this is the best work that I could produce. He said, you can do better than that. Go back, write again. Third time. Try my very best, analyze every single word of my communication. Bring it to him, he looked at it for a little bit longer this time. Crumble it, this is So I'm not gonna do it again. He said, do it again. Fine. That happened 7th time. By the 7th time, this time it's like almost like a month later. He looked at it, and looked at it, finally said, this is okay. I said, oh, finally, this is okay. He said, you know what, Dan, let me tell you something. Actually, your first draft, it was okay. But he said, what if I just share with you? You thought this is your limit. This is as good as you could get. I tell you, I challenge you, and you outdo yourself, and you outdo yourself, and you outdo yourself, and this is 7th draft. Now this is good work. So whatever you think the limit that you have, it's not your limit. You could do so much more. You might not like it. All depends on how you interpret it. But you will look back and the worst thing would turn out to be the greatest thing that ever happened to you.
And she says the most offensive thing to me that you can say to a person of color in the United States of America. She asks me, were you born in this country? And I was immediately offended. I put my hands on my hips and I said, yeah, I was born in this country. She then goes on to ask me, how old are you? I said, 19 years old. She says, are you married? I said, no, ma'am. She says, do you have any kids? I said, no, ma'am. May I help you find something? She then goes on to tell me something that changed my life forever. She says, you look like you could be the next Miss USA. And I laughed at this woman hysterically. I said, lady, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going into my sophomore year at Virginia State. I'm about to commission in 3 years, go on active duty, be a military officer. Somehow, this crazy woman convinced me to meet her at Starbucks the very next day. She brought this foot-tall stack of pageant books, and she goes on to convince me to compete in my very first pageant. I compete in my first pageant 3 months later, and I lose. I go back the second year, compete in my state pageant, and I lose. I go back the third year, compete in my state pageant, and I lose. Go back the fourth year, compete in my state pageant and lose. Go back the fifth year, compete in my state pageant and lose. But guess what happens the sixth year? I lose. I called her on the phone 6 years after our Target conversation, and I said, "You told me I could be the next Miss USA." And she says, "Deshauna, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying." In June of 2015, this amazing, kind of cuckoo woman passes away from leukemia. In December 2015, I win Miss District of Columbia, USA. In June 2016, I'm crowned the first soldier to win Miss USA. And last January in Manila, Philippines, I walked the Miss Universe stage and placed top 9 amongst 86 countries. Do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret. When you walk out this door into the real world, you will receive a lot of shut doors, a lot of turned down applications. You will hear way more no's than you hear yeses. Giving up is something I did a lot of growing up, and I don't think I really challenged myself to stick anything through until I joined the track team in middle school. I remember having to ask my mom after tryouts and making it to the team for my very first pair of track shoes. Now, at the time, she walks into our house and she has a bag that has a nice Nike check sign on it, so I get excited because I wasn't getting new shoes very often. I go to take the shoe box out the bag and I notice that it says a size 9 on it. Mind you, in the 7th grade, I was a size 5. I open the box and I slide my feet into the shoe and I look at my mother and I said, "These shoes are too big." She says, "I know I did that on purpose." I was like, "Why would you buy shoes that are too big on purpose, Mom?" And she says, "Because I know that you're going to grow into them." Coach has us line up on the starting line and he wants us to run a lap around the track. As we go to take off, I immediately fall to the ground, twist my ankle because the shoes are entirely too big. See, I couldn't run at the speed that I wanted to because I didn't fit the shoes I was wearing at the time. Now, many of us have goals we're trying to achieve, but the person we are right now is not the person that we need to be when we cross the finish line to our dreams. So we must walk and pace ourselves on this journey to our goals because we haven't grown enough in ourselves to fit the shoes that we need to achieve our aspirations. But let me tell you something. If I had won Miss USA my very first year, I would not have been Miss USA. I would not have been the version of myself that I needed to be to properly handle a national title. Many of us aren't ready to walk the race, but understand that as we walk this race, we pace ourselves, and as we pace ourselves, we grow. And as we grow, our foot gets bigger, and as our foot gets bigger, our shoes begin to fill, and as our shoes begin to fill, we can now run a little bit faster, and as we pick up the pace, we get to the finish line at the exact time we are destined to cross it. Do not fear the word no, but be afraid of the possibility of a yes that you have prematurely destroyed because you decided to quit before the clock strikes 12. There are a lot of questions that is going to keep you up at night, but I guarantee there isn't one question that will keep you up longer at night than the question, what if I didn't give up?
I was flunking out of college. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I hope none of you can relate. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I was sitting in my mother's beauty shop. They still call it beauty shops now? What they call it now? Yeah, I was sitting in the beauty parlor. I was sitting in my mother's beauty parlor, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I see behind me this woman under the dryer. And every time she looked up, every time I looked up, she was looking at me, just looking me in the eye. And I didn't know who she was, and I said, you know, she said, "Somebody give me a pen, give me a pencil, I have a prophecy." March 27, 1975, she said, "Boy, you are gonna travel the world and speak to millions of people." Now mind you, I flunked out of college. I'm thinking about joining the army. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and she's telling me I'm gonna travel the world and speak to millions of people. Well, I have traveled the world, and I have spoke to millions of people. But that's not the most important thing, the success that I had. The most important thing is that what she taught me and what she told me that day has stayed with me since. I've been protected, I've been directed, I've been corrected. Fail big. That's right. Fail big. You only live once, so do what you feel passionate about. Take chances professionally. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test, was 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. So don't be afraid to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. So have dreams, but have goals. Life goals, yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. I try to give myself a goal every day. And understand that to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. You have to work at it every day. You have to plan every day. You've heard the saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. Hard work works. Working really hard is what successful people do. And in this text, tweet, twerk world that you've grown up in, remember, just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Remember that. Just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Don't confuse movement with progress. My mother told me, she said, yeah, because you can run in place all the time and never get anywhere. So continue to strive, continue to have goals, continue to progress. And anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one. Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference.